Yes, Hamzambo family. Welcome to the Fit for Correspondence show right here on the Blackout Network Media for the 21st century. Being on the fourth day of the fourth month of the year is still at 2022. I want to say Karibuni Sana to yet another wonderful broadcast where we get to understand Africa better by really considering information from a historical context and also from the current context. We shall be discussing different issues coming from South Sudan, Sudan itself, and also Kenya and other parts of the continent of Africa. In case you're joining us for the very first time, my name is Spikes, and I hope that you have had a wonderful start to the week. Right here in Nairobi is just 2 minutes past 2 p.m. And I hope that wherever you all are at, you are also excited to be in my company today, even as we get to delve into different issues that have to do with us as a continent and also as a Black people globally. So once again, I would say Karibuni Sana, which simply means you are most welcome to the broadcast. I understand that around this particular time of the year, it might be raining in different parts of the continent. If you were to go down to a place like Rwanda in Kigali, you will find the place raining. But we shall be talking about the weather and other different matters right here on the Blackout Fire Network, right after we get back from this short break. When you come back, we shall be introducing our topic for the day, and we shall be telling you what has been happening in the better part of the continent. So welcome back to the broadcast. We had a bit of a hit right there. There was the computer freezing. But I would just like to put the point across that I am not a historian, but today we shall be making an attempt at going back into African history and getting to understand a little bit much more about the Nubian culture and also the Nubian civilization. For the better part, we have seen the Nubian civilization and the Nubian culture being excluded. When we talk African history, we tend to see Egypt or ancient Kemet in prominent. We shall also be talking about Nubia with the aim of getting to understand a little bit more about the Nubian culture. And we talk about the Nubian culture, that is the culture of the people of current day Sudan and also South Sudan. South Sudan is which gained its independence on July 2011, and therefore we can only say that the country has been independent only for 11 years. If you can hear me, please do let me know. We're having a bit of heat. The computer keeps on freezing. But anyhow, if you can hear me, please do let me know. If not, also I will try see what I can do. It might be like might have opened up way too many tabs on this one because I have a lot today's show. But please, if you can hear me, notify me. If you cannot hear me, also please do let me know. The computer keeps on freezing, but I'm working on it as well. We're back. We are back, family. I hope that you can hear me. If you can hear me, please do let me know. If you cannot hear me, also do let me know. But we shall be talking about the young Africa as the youngest nation, which is Sudan. I was saying that Sudan gained its independence in July 20, and therefore this is the country that has only been independent for 11 years right now as we speak. But there has been many challenges to this particular, which is led by two leaders, one and only Riek Machar, and now we also do have Slava Kial. These are the two different. These are two leaders in South Sudan. And what has been happening right now is that there has been a worry in Sudan over the return of fighting in this country, where we have had civil wars that have led to many people becoming internally displaced, and not just internally displaced, but many of them also having ran to the neighboring countries to seek refuge. We have Sudanese communities that have come up in Kenya, others that have also gone to Uganda, others that have also gone to Ethiopia and many other parts of the continent, looking for a safe refuge where they can start over their lives. And we shall has been a conflict inside Sudan. Like I said, the computer is frozen once again, but if you can hear me, please do let me know. If not, also please update me on the same. Just let me know on the same. You can hear me as we seek to see what's going on with the system here. Let me see if again I get to close some of these tabs. Um, Apologies for the we apologize for the hits. like share with us regarding Sudan, and also talking about their independence, the independence of these which gained its independence in July 2011. And I shall also be letting you know why these matter is of significance. It might have to do with the many tabs that I have opened on the computer. Let me see if I can get shut down some of these ones. It stops freezing. Apologies once again, our family. It's a hot Monday afternoon, right here, the 4th of April, the year 2022 in Nairobi. And I was saying that maybe it might have to do with the many tabs that have open up here. Let me see if I can shut down some of these so that we can get to continue with the broadcast. The focus of today goes to South Sudan, which is Africa's youngest nation, which gained its independence from the largest Sudan in July 2011. Sister Michelle, you're saying it's freezing up. Let me see if I can work on it. Let me just work on it briefly and I'll get back. Today our connectivity is good, but the computer is also acting up. Let me see what I can do in that regard. Just give me a second. Let me see if there is anything I could do to remedy the situation. Okay, now on the system. So we are back, family. I'm just trying to shut down some of these other tabs so that we can proceed. So family, allow me to try and reload this particular tab for a second, see if that might help. Apologies, welcome back to the broadcast. We were saying that today's focus goes to Sudan, which is a country that, again, South Sudan, which is a country that, again, its independence from Sudan, the larger Sudan, in 2011, July 2011. And the reason we were talking about Sudan today is because there has been a report which is worrying that there might be the starting of another conflict in this particular country that has had challenges since it got its independence. And I want to share with us a brief video of how Sudan gained its independence. And from there, we shall also go back into a matter of talking about Nubia. Because I was saying it seems like Nubia is always overshadowed. When we are talking about African history, we find Egypt taking prominence, but we also have to understand that at some point, Nubians also got to rule Egypt. So before that, let me just share a little bit of South Sudan and tell you what is happening with South Sudan currently before we go back into history, what used to happen with the Nubians. And these are culture that has also not gotten its shine when you do have it being covered by the rest of Egypt. You know, Egypt, there has been so many information coming about ancient Egypt and the civilization, but most times you will also find that Nubia is not given the shine that it deserves as a country as well, or sorry, as a civilization as well.
Hi.
Hello, welcome to BioGrades TV. If you're new here, please subscribe and turn on the notification so you don't miss our next video. How South Sudan got independence. In the 1890s, British forces invaded Sudan and brought it under their control. They brought in British officials to administer the vast region and imposed their policies. After World War One, the Sudanese nationalism movement began to gain some steam, coming to the realization that the British could not suppress Sudanese desire for self governance and complete independence. The British colonizers signed an agreement in 1953 that granted the Sudanese self governance. Though free from British rule, the undeveloped, mainly Christian and animist South was under the administration of the predominantly Muslim North, based in Khartoum. The divide was growing so widely within the newly autonomous Sudan. Soon, the southern part of the country began to call for a federal system that would give it some level of autonomy from the central government. When this was refused, it provoked a mutiny by southern military officials that launched Sudan's first civil war, which lasted from 1955 to 1972. The northern Sudanese desire from the beginning was to unify the country under Arab Muslim control based in the north. By so doing, they alienated Christians and animists in the south and other marginalized groups. Even though the South was divided concerning if it wanted complete independence or a federal system, they were unified in their opposition of a central government. All through the 1960s, successive civilian governments worsened the situation by not allowing any meaningful level of self determination to the South. When in 1972, secular socialist leader Colonel Ghaffar Mohammed Nimeiri came up with a policy that granted autonomy to the South and signed it into agreement, Southerners showed their gratitude by helping Colonel Nimeiri put down two coup attempts. However, his early support did not last as it was swept away when pressure from the North forced him to abandon his support for the South. The final blow to the South's agitations for autonomy came when oil was discovered in the South. In 1983, Nimeri abolished the separate southern region and put all control in the hands of the central government. He also made Arabic the official language there as well. These hostile and insensitive decisions against the South triggered the Second Civil War and gave birth to the Sudanese People's Liberation Movement and Army, SPLAM. 2 years later, in 1985, Nimeri was overthrown. During the following transitional governance period, a number of half-hearted attempts at peace failed over the question of exempting the South from Islamic law. The South insisted on this, but it was totally unacceptable for many in the central government. The new president of Sudan installed the National Islamic Front government in 1989. His party's emphasis on co-opting Islam into the political and legal systems of the country served to heighten the North-South conflicts. Meanwhile, the SPLAM had begun to gain influence, becoming the main voice for South Sudanese. The eastern and western regions, having been alienated by Bashir, had taken sides with the southern rebels led by SPLAM under Colonel John Garang's leadership. Although a number of agreements were signed between the central government and some of the southern rebel factions to end the conflict between the North and South, the SPLA was not one of the parties in those agreements. In 2002, the central government and the SPLAM began talks to agree on ending the civil war. The talks continued, and in 2005, the two sides signed a comprehensive peace agreement which clearly laid out a plan for southern autonomy for the next 6 years, followed by a referendum in the South on its independence. The agreement also included a power sharing arrangement for the central government that made SPLAM leader Garang the vice president of Sudan. Unfortunately, Garang died in a helicopter crash only a few months later, and Salva Kiir, his vice president, became the vice president of the central government. He also took over the leadership of the SPLAM. In the years between the signing of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement and the referendum, there was considerable calm between the North and South, although sometimes open conflict still broke out. Finally, on the 9th of January 2011, South Sudanese came out en masse to vote in a referendum on their independence. More than 99% of them voted.
That's some brief history right there about how South Sudan came to gain its independence from the main or the larger Sudan. But in this particular story, there are many parallels that we can draw from Sudan, the country, and also with Nigeria. You know, in Nigeria, we do have the northern part of Nigeria, which is a Muslim, and you do have the southern part of Nigeria, which is a Christian. The same thing was for Sudan. We did have Sudan being one of the largest country before it broke down into two, Sudan and South Sudan. Sudan was one of the largest countries on the continent of Africa. But of course, because of this fight or because of this push for the emancipation and autonomy for the southern part, which was a predominantly Christian and animist, that is why we did have the breaking up over this particular part because they agitated for their own autonomy. It was given to them, and they conducted a referendum, which also led to them voting for their independence in 2011. And in July 2011, they were given this independence. And right now, we still have the country which was led by Garang. Like you did hear, Garang died from a plane crash, and it was taken over. The country was taken over by Slovakia. For Slovakia, this did not, when Slovakia took over in South Sudan, it did not mean that the fighting stopped. There was also other opposing functions in this particular government, which were also led by Riek Machar. And when you're talking about Riek Machar is also at some point, you know, he became also a leader in South Sudan, coming from the Nuer tribe. He became the leader of South Sudan as a vice president, the vice president to Riek, the vice president really to Slovakia. He became the vice president to Slovakia, and he represents the Nuer tribe or the Nuer people. The thing is, when you come to Sudan, we do have many ethnic groups. It's very ethnically diverse. We do have about 64 tribes in Sudan. And now with these 64 tribes, we also do have sub tribes. If I might call them sub ethnic groups. And these sub ethnic groups are about 500 sub ethnic groups in Sudan. So we are talking about a country which is not just broken down by religion, which is the northern part, the main Sudan, which is Muslim, and then the southern part, which became independent in 2011. But we also now do have the Sudanese people, whether be it from North Sudan or from not whether be it from Sudan or South Sudan, being broken down by tribalism, and you do have about 500 different subgroups in Sudan. But of course, this is a disintegration of people that were once strong. Right now, there are reports that these are issue over the conflicts, internal conflicts between different groups might continue, and also between different rebel functions might continue. Like you did here with our presentation, there was the SPLM, which was the main force or militant force agitating for the independence of South Sudan. They eventually got it. But I am just saying in this day and age, we are living in days very, very far from the days of the better days where we did have the Nubian people being one or being much more united than they are right now. And I always do say that united we do stand, divided we do fall. Sister Michelle, you saying a good morning. Good morning to you too. You saying happy Ramadan. And also saying we're freezing up. Yes, we had a bit of a heat when we were starting up. But right now, I do believe that you can hear me clear. Mr. Dinosaur, Fat. You're saying good morning. I do not want to get into a story of why you choose a name, but I am glad nonetheless that you are with us on today's broadcast. So talking about the current and also comparing it with the rich history of the Nubian people, I was saying a little bit earlier that the rich history of the Nubian people has been taken or has been stolen. It has also been covered up, sort of covered by the stories about the civilization in Kemet that you do get to hear. But there are a couple of videos I want to share with us briefly that have to do with the Nubian people and also why this Nubian culture and the Nubian civilization really is always in the backdrop. It's always the story is always covered by the Egyptian civilization or the ancient Kemet civilization. Let me just share with us a little bit of a video, and then you shall also get to agree with this woman where she says that the Egyptologists, all that the Egyptologists have done a very, very big work in terms of removing Nubia from the center states, and now it's only at the back states, if I might call it so. Let me share with us this brief video of how this has happened, and perhaps why it has been so. You might agree with the sentiments are on the same. If you disagree, also let me know. This is an interactive show where you can also let me know your thoughts on our different issues.
Egypt has always traditionally been given prominence as the height of ancient culture. Nubia is now coming into its own and is being understood to be of equal importance. It is different from ancient Egypt, but it is equally important and not just an adjunct to this Egyptian culture. What archaeologists do when they pull material from the ground or when they translate texts, they bring their own cultural baggage to that interpretation and the baggage of the times that they live in. And so it's imperative that we go back and continually reassess the things that we take as facts. Many of the early archaeologists came to the study of ancient Egypt and ancient Nubia from the perspective of Semitic languages or the study of the Hebrew Bible. And it was very important to them to bring Egypt specifically into the sphere of biblical studies. And so they had to carve Egypt away from Africa to bring it into that sphere. And the way that they did that was they used race. So these early archaeologists effectively made ancient Egypt white in the sense that they made it part of a dominant Western culture, and ancient Nubia was separated from that. It was Black. And this was how they took Egypt out of Africa and put it into this Semitic sphere, this biblical sphere. And it's only in recent decades.
And when she talks about Egypt being taken from from Africa, and they whitewashed that part of history. What did happen is that with many Africans on the continent right now, we have also followed these Egyptologists and these are researchers, quote unquote researchers, who are part and parcel of whitewashing the history of African people. Right now, if you talk about the history of ancient Kemet or the ancient Egyptian civilization, what will happen in the mind of the African is that they will see the current day Arabs that are there right now and associate that civilization with the Arabs, who have nothing to do with the civilization itself. But that is the image that you will find in the head of many Africans when we are conversing about Egypt, conversing about the civilization on the Nile Valley. Many people want to alienate that from the rightful people, or black people that used to that used to be there in those particular times before we did have the Arabs, the Persians, and everyone else also coming in and taking over, and also being involved in the whitewashing of these African history. The problem is, like I did say earlier, myself personally, I'm not a historian, but I'm just making an attempt also to share information as it's supposed to be. And she is also talking on the light. She is also giving light to the matter when she says that these Egyptologists, they have removed ancient Egypt from Africa. Now, for many Africans, the concept of ancient African civilization is foreign. Many people want to associate that with the Arabs. And this has been done systematically, and they have done it with a whole big intent to corrupt historical facts.
It's the last 3-4 decades that Egyptology has really moved away from that. And scholars who are studying Nubia are really given the chance to give a voice to this Nubian material that it wasn't given much of a chance to have in the past. Someone asks me, what was the ancient Egyptians' view of X? I immediately think of a two-pronged view, because the ancient Egyptians had an official view of many things, and this is the view that would be put up on the walls of temples and on the walls of the tombs of the elites. That was an official, let's say, state-sanctioned view. That bore little to no resemblance to what people actually may have thought. It was the official view. So when you look at Nubia as depicted on the walls of temples in Egypt, you will see Nubians being crushed under the chariot wheels of the king. You will see Nubians being dragged back to Egypt enslaved. What we see on the ground in terms of archaeological evidence is quite different. We see people who had Nubian names, people who were using Nubian material culture, living within Egypt, working in Egypt, marrying people with Egyptian names. So something quite different from the very intense militaristic scenes that you see in temples. When George Reisner excavated Kerma, he found the statue, a large, beautiful statue of Senui, and also a statue partially destroyed of Jaffa Happy, her husband. It was a very large tomb. And with size in Egypt and in Nubia, we tend to assume ruler or someone very important, which usually translates to ruler. We now understand, yes, this was a ruler's tomb. It is a completely different time period than Jaffa Happy and Senui lived in, much later. We understand it to be a local ruler, so it was a Kerman official who, for reasons we can guess at, brought or had these two statues brought to Kerma and put in his tomb. It could have been an appropriation of Egyptian culture in general, just to show that, yes, I can own these things that are Egyptian wonderful works of art. Because what we're saying, if you read between the lines, is whoever owns these statues is a powerful person. And that means this art has power.
She did not go much into details of why these Nubian culture has also been hidden. But I want to share with us briefly on the rivalry between all the coexistence and the rivalry between Nubians and also the Egyptians. And you also did have Nubians who are also leaders or rulers in Egypt. And therefore, this also has not been put in the rightful context when you're talking about our own African history. And I was saying, back in the day, the Nubians were not what we do have right now.
Grammarly?
Very much divided. You know, we did not have that big division that we do have right now of our 64 tribes. And then with the 64 tribes, now we do have...
does more than catch errors.
Exactly.
With Grammarly, you can find really good, no, perfect words that make your writing sharp, or explicit, or excellent, or distinctive. As a matter of fact, for what it's worth,
so this video now here talks about these are Nubian kings that are...
Nubia is very important concerning the antiquity of African civilization and its contributions to the more recognized Egyptian civilization. Contrary to popular belief, the first recognized civilization in the Nile Valley was not Egyptian, but Nubian. Thus, wouldn't it only be natural that Nubian rulers would have held some sway over Egyptian civilization before the 25th dynasty? Today, we'll explore that answer. To another video of African history. If you may do out of Africa, primarily Greek sources point to the antiquity of Nubian people and civilization. Initially, many Greek scholars actually traveled to Egypt to learn from a civilization they deemed older than theirs. Upon their arrival, to their surprise, they would learn that there existed on the African continent an even older civilization. This civilization or people would be known as the Ethiopians to the Greeks, what we would call Nubians or the people of the Sudan today. The two primary Greek historians that seem to be more open to this idea and more vocal about what they were told in Egypt were Herodotus and Diodorus Siculus. Interestingly enough, Diodorus Siculus, upon his visit to Egypt, spoke with a local who attributes most of Egypt's civilization to the Nubian people. Diodorus told us what he heard while he was there. They say that the Egyptians are colonists sent out by the Nubians, Osiris having been the leader of the colony, and the larger part of the customs of the Egyptians are, they hold, Nubian, the colonists still preserving their ancient manners. For instance, the belief that their kings are gods, the very special attention which they paid to their burials, and many other matters of a similar nature are Nubian practices. Many other things are also told by them concerning their own antiquity and the colony which they sent out that became the Egyptians. So, from the very beginning, it would seem as though, at least from early Nile Valley accounts, based on what Diodorus was told, Egypt was a colony of Nubian migrants who began bringing their culture to that part of the Nile. This would seem to align with the idea that the Nubian kingdom of Tasseti, the Nile Valley's first recognizable civilization, later became an Egyptian city after the first ruler Menes conquered the region. Based on what Diodorus is telling us, the Nubians, who first came down the Nile to go into Egypt, over time became the Egyptians. This is not to say at all that the Egyptians are Nubians, as many Africans across the continent migrated into Egypt. But it does suggest that the foundation of Egyptian culture and civilization are Nubian, according to ancient oral and written tradition. What's even more telling is the invention of the so-called Egyptian hieroglyphs that is claimed to be of Nubian origin by Diodorus. As mentioned in a previous video, the very hieroglyphic symbol for a human face no doubt resembles a typical Nubian or Sudanese man who would have existed during that time. Diodorus tells us the shapes of their statues and the forms of their letters are Nubian. For of the two kinds of writing which the Egyptians have, that which is known as popular is learned by everyone, while that which is called sacred is understood only by the priests of the Egyptians who learn it from their fathers as one of the things which are not divulged. But among the Nubians, everyone uses these forms of letters. We must now speak about the Nubian writing, which is called hieroglyphic among the Egyptians, in order that we may omit nothing in our discussion of their antiquities. As Diodorus continues with his talking points, he drops a gem. He himself calls hieroglyphics a Nubian writing form and alludes to the idea that it was invented by them. Now, of course, this perspective is in stark contrast to what we in the Western world accept. But in actuality, this account does fall precisely in line with ancient oral and written tradition. If Nubia was indeed the first civilization on the Nile, and oral history maintains that Egypt used to be a colony of Nubian migrants, or perhaps conquerors, then we should also expect to see some rulers in early Egyptian history who were of Nubian extraction. Interestingly enough, this is exactly what we see in Old Kingdom Egypt, at least from an account from another Greek historian named Herodotus. Herodotus claims that an Egyptian priest told him the following. The priest said that Mena was the first king of Egypt. Next, they read me from a papyrus the names of 330 monarchs who they said were his successors upon the throne. In this number of generations, there were 18 Nubian kings and one queen who was a native. All the rest were kings and Egyptians. We've come a very long way from the ancient Greek historical perspective, which all seems to tell us the same story, that Nubia is not only older than Egypt, but is the foundation from which Egyptian culture took off. Traditionally, we accept the fact that Nubian pharaohs controlled Egypt in the 25th dynasty, but rarely do we hear about this ancient perspective concerning numerous Nubian pharaohs in the Old Kingdom. From this Greek account, we can see that the religious vigor and feelings of ownership over the Nile Valley civilization proclaimed by the Kushite pharaohs makes perfect sense. It's also important to note that Diodorus and Herodotus were simply documenting the oral tradition within Africa itself, as the Egyptians or Nubians they spoke with told them this. Diodorus traveled to Egypt around 60 and 56 BC, and Herodotus is believed to have traveled as far as Upper Egypt.
Also, when it comes to the issues of, for example, the pyramids, we do have so many pyramids that you will find in Sudan. And that is why I do believe also Sudan also ought to get its rightful place when it comes to African history. And let me share a little bit also briefly on these forgotten wars and maybe an invasion of Egypt in 720 BC before we go back into now current issues. And I was saying right now we do have like 64 tribes in Sudan, you know, and it's not as powerful. This is a country that is considered to be very poor, even if it has rich resources in oil.
Today, I wanted to give voice to words written in stone nearly 3 millennia ago, from a civilization which has largely been forgotten. They begin as follows. Quote, "Hear of what I did, more than the ancestors. I am a king, divine emanation, living image of Atum, who came forth from the womb, adorned as a ruler, of whom those greater than he were afraid, whose father knew, and whose mother recognized that he would rule the world in the womb. The good God, beloved of the gods, achieving with his hands, Merimon Pianki." Such was the pronouncement of Piye, one of the greatest kings of Nubia, whose conquest would see him reign as the first black pharaoh of Upper and Lower Egypt. Today, let us listen to his tale. It's been extremely refreshing for me to finally explore African history. I'll admit that sometimes it can be a bit intimidating knowing where to start and how to understand the broader picture of just how everything fits together. Thankfully, our sponsor Blinkist has a solution. Blinkist is an app that makes learning new topics. It's been a great tool for me when it comes to hit as well as the Rift. The New Kingdom of Egypt represented one of the absolute high water marks of their civilization. Stretching from the southern lands of Nubia all the way up to the northern lands of Syria, it was a remarkably diverse and powerful empire. Yet the greater the ascent, the greater the fall, and after 500 years of unparalleled prosperity, it finally came crashing down. But why did this occur? The real answer would involve a complex series of factors that played out over many centuries. However, the general idea is that the New Kingdom was brought low by the following: environmental conditions such as drought and famine, foreign invasions by forces like the Sea Peoples during the Bronze Age collapse, economic decline and civil unrest resulting from these adverse conditions, turbulent transfers of power across the dynasties, and political fracturing as factions like the High Priests of Thebes capitalized on a weakened central authority. Thus, by the year 1078 BC, Ramses XI would die as the last pharaoh of the New Kingdom. The vultures now descended upon its corpse. The following years would be categorized by later historians as the Third Intermediate Period, a nice academic way to describe what was a rather tumultuous time of widespread upheaval. By the middle of the 8th century BC, the lands of Egypt had disintegrated into local city-states, with a variety of competing powers all vying for supreme control. It will now be worth quickly reviewing these. To the north lay the various kings and princes of the Delta. Those along its east were the lingering remnants of the 22nd and 23rd dynasties. Those along its center were the great chiefs of the Meshwesh, an ancient tribal group. On their flank were the great chiefs of the west, who had seen their noble lineages infused with Libyan blood in recent years. To their south lay the rulers of Heracleopolis, Hermopolis, and Thebes. Around 730 BC, the balance of power would be upset by Tefnacht, the prince of Sais, who formed a new alliance that now threatened to conquer all of Egypt. We actually have reports of these events from observers at the time. I'll now quote our source directly to give you a proper feel for the unfolding drama. Quote, "He has seized the whole west, from the backed lands to Ithto, coming southward with a numerous army, while the two lands are united behind him, and the princes and rulers of walled towns are as dogs at his heels. No stronghold has closed its doors in the nomes of the south. Meratum, Persa-Kemper, the temple of Sebek, Permazed, Teknesh, and every city of the west, they have opened the doors for fear of him. He turned to the east, they opened to him likewise, had long been entwined with the affairs of Egypt. In fact, the ascent of the New Kingdom had meant that their lands up to the Fourth Cataract had been directly ruled by the pharaohs of the north. During this period, there would be a great cultural mixing. Many powerful families intermarried, while young Nubian nobles were often sent to Thebes, where they learned Egyptian writing, science, and religion. Such was the degree of integration that when the New Kingdom receded, the Nubians would take up the mantle as the preservers of ancient Egyptian tradition. Thus, the kingdom of Nubia at Napata was able to exert its control over the southern Nile, maintaining garrisons in Upper Egypt and installing their princess as the high priestess of Amun in Thebes. Piye was the eldest brother of that princess, and eventually ascended to the throne around 750 BC. His early reign was occupied by various moves meant to consolidate power and eliminate internal threats. As had been the case throughout the history of Nubia, though, nothing worked better in this regard than a proper spear rattling.
Thus it came as welcome news to PA when the northern princes sent envoys pleading that he do something to halt the unstoppable army of Tefnach. The ruler would certainly answer their calls, but he also had ambitious dreams of what such a campaign could accomplish. According to our records, the offensive began with a vanguard force. Messages were sent by PA to his two commanders currently stationed in Egypt. Their orders were as follows, quote, hasten into battle order, engage in combat, surround the foe, capture its people and its cattle, its ships upon the river. Let not the peasants go forth to the field, let not the plowmen plow, beset the frontier of the Hare Nome, fight against it daily. Yoke the war horses, the best of thy stable, draw up the battle bow before the commanders, and pledge itself to PA. With these steps taken, the war could begin. Now, a powerful fleet was amassed on the Nile and sailed downstream with the rest of the Nubian army marching at its side. Together, they forged a path ahead. Let's now return to our sources. Quote, our men sailed downstream upon the river. Thence they found many ships coming upstream bearing soldiers, sailors, and commanders, every valiant man of the Northland, equipped with weapons of war, to fight against the army of his majesty. Then there was made a great slaughter among them, whose number was unknown.
The way he gets to tell the story of the invasion, the Nubian invasion of Egypt, is much more, what can I call it? He has, he makes it a little bit much more dramatic, but I would believe that maybe perhaps it was such dramatic. But the problem, that the point I was pointing to is that right now, we have had Nubia. When it comes to African history, we do have Nubia being covered, and all we hear is about Egypt. And also for Egypt, that the Egypt that we do hear of is Egypt whose history has been whitewashed, like the lady was talking about a little bit earlier on. And Sister Janet, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. You're saying I'm doing, I think you're saying hello to General Mosquito. General Mosquito saying good afternoon. You're saying my husband is from Niamang tribe. The thing is, with Sudan, we do have 64 tribes. And now with the 64 tribes we do have in Sudan, then we do have 500 other sub can I call them sub tribes? Yeah, 500 sub tribes of these 64. And like we were saying a little bit earlier, we do have people continuing in fighting because they do feel that they are not well represented. We do have Salva Kiir. Salva Kiir, he comes from the Dinka tribe. And Salva Kiir, of course, he is a leader. He has been the leader. And also we do have Riek Machar. Riek Machar also now comes from he comes from the Nuer Bentiu people. And this is a problem that you do have, that because some tribes feel that they are not well represented. They feel that they are not part and parcel of the power matrix. You know, they feel that they are not well represented. Riek Machar, of course, has been the vice president in South Sudan. And we do have Salva Kiir. Salva Kiir was a part of he took over from Garang. And we also seen that Garang died in a plane crash, living in Sudan, also in chaos. We have had many wars in Sudan. And if you look at the glory, all the glory of ancient Nubia, you know, being a strong, unified people, to right now being 64 different ethnic groups, there is a problem. Ethnicity and these breaking down into small ethnic groups has not led to Africa yielding power. It has led to more internal conflicts, such as we have had in Sudan, and the loss of so many lives because of these internal conflicts. Of course, I was saying that now we are hearing about Riek Machar. We're hearing about now Riek Machar. His house last week, was it last week? Yeah, his house last week was surrounded by government forces, which are allied to Salva Kiir. And they were saying that these might also spark another prolonged period of war in Sudan, which is, I'm talking about South Sudan at the minute. I'm not talking about the larger Sudan. I'm talking about South Sudan, which gained its independence in July 2011. This is the youngest country on the continent, having gained its independence just 11 years ago. It's actually not even 11 years yet, because they gained it on the 7th of July in 2011. But the problem is, this is a country that was also, there was the discovery of oil. Was it in the I believe in the 1990s, if I'm not mistaken, when there was a discovery of oil in South Sudan. but this oil has not helped this country any much. And I was drawing parallels also between Sudan and Nigeria. In Nigeria, we also do have the upper part, or the upper Nigeria, or the northern Nigeria, which is predominantly Muslim. And then you do have the southern part of Nigeria, and people are now much more divided along the religion, because like I did say, even in Sudan, that the upper Sudan or the North Sudan, which is the current day Sudan, it is Muslim. And then you do have South Sudan, which gained independence 11 years ago. That now is a Christian. It's predominantly Christian and animist. You'll find people, of course, worshiping whatever. They do have their own different systems, but it's predominantly Christian. The same thing with Nigeria. Nigeria also has about 200 different ethnic groups. And if you talk about African development, or moving towards maybe perhaps economic development, we cannot have this development without these different communities, all these different ethnic groups. We need to go back and look into our history. And then when you look back into our history, we will not hear about these small different groups way back so many years ago. Of course, as time has moved along, people have disintegrated into small ethnic groups, the tribes and the sub-tribes, and then the clans. And then apart from the clans, now we also do have the issue of religion. You're Muslim, you're Christian. That is a problem that we are facing right here on the continent of Africa. I do purpose to also continue enlightening myself much more in terms of Nubian history. We do have Nubians everywhere. We do have Nubians in Kenya. We have a Nubian community in Kenya. We do have the Nubian community in Ethiopia as well. I believe you'll also find Nubians in other parts of the continent, but predominantly these are the people that you will find who are considered to be rich in melanin. They are they are highly melanated. And the problem is, the thing is, even when you come across, even in Kenya, like I said, we have many Sudanese brothers and sisters right here in Kenya. And even if you want to come across a Sudanese, of course, you might know they are Sudanese because, like I say, because of their hue or their color, they are deeply melanated compared to the regular folk that you might find. But you will not know what tribe they are from. The tribe only comes when it's an internal issue. You will not really tell whether this Sudanese is from this tribe, or he's from the Nua tribe, or he's from the Dinka tribe, or he's from all these different tribes that you do have in Sudan, which is a problem. Like you said, there are 64 tribes in Sudan. And of course, these include the Beja, the Fu, the Nubam, the Falata. And if we continue disintegrating into these small different tribes, then it shall be difficult getting past our challenges that we have on the continent, which have been occasioned by the division on the continent. But apart from that, I just wanted to highlight something else that has to do with the issue of fuel, the crises that have come about because of the fuel shortage on the continent. And the thing is, it's funny because we have so many countries. The other week, I was talking to a brother from Sierra Leone, and he was telling me that it's the same situation with the fuel shortage in Sierra Leone. And I fail really to understand that we do have many oil-producing countries on the continent. I would just call them many, or just say enough. Let me just use the word enough oil-producing countries on the continent. I do believe we also do have countries that have oil on the continent, but it has not really been explored and quote-unquote discovered. So when you look at the country's production of oil, we do have Angola. Let me just name the top oil-producing countries on the continent. We do have Angola. We do have Nigeria. We do have Sudan. These are the largest oil-producing countries on the continent. But I would say if we did have enough refineries, then we would be able to also have countries, we would have been able to maybe perhaps curb this shortage, this crisis that is arising from the issue of fuel. But we do have Nigeria selling its oil to other countries outside the continent. We do have Angola also selling its oil outside. The other day I was telling us about Equatorial Guinea. It's also another tiny country which has oil on its exclave. It has oil, Equatorial Guinea. But all this oil, I believe, is also sold outside the continent. And therefore, this is also one of the contributing factors as to why we do have shortages on the continent of oil. But I would say this, I understand it's because of the economic situation, even on the continent of Africa, because you would not tell me that Equatorial Guinea will be willing to sell its oil to a country like Somalia or to a country like maybe Gabon, which might not give it favorable prices or favorable deals for selling this particular oil, the country wants to take its oil where it's getting its money, or it gets in a much better deal, and that is unfortunately not on the continent of Africa. But according to a new plan which has been set up, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area, I do believe if as the African continent, we do get to explore this Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which seeks to remove the non-tariff barriers and other barriers among its different countries that would bring about these difficulties in trading. For example, in oil, in other commodities, if these barriers are removed, and we do have now much more intra-Africa trade, then maybe perhaps we can be able to sort out some of the challenges that we are facing. In Nigeria, they are doing it good because they do have the making of a new refinery in Nigeria. But that is just not enough. The other day I was sharing these video of the oil refinery being made in Nigeria. That is just not enough. In Kenya, we have had the mismanagement of parastatals. We have seen the closing down of oil refineries. For example, there was one at the coastal region of Kenya known as the Changamwe oil refinery. So shut down, and now we have to keep on importing a refined crude oil. And these are the petroleum products. It's crazy. But anyhow, that is a problem that we are facing right here. General Mosquito, you're saying, me, I'm from the African tribe. It's a good thing that you're from the African tribe, but if you're going back to Ghana, and like you remember, there was this singer, her name is Ari. Her name is Ari. What is the other name? Ari something. Ari Lennox. Is she Ari Lennox? She tried to go back from the US, and the people of Ghana, they came up against her, ganged up against her, saying, "Oh, she's coming back. She's not even from our tribe." And that is the kind of a nonsense that is stopping us even from connecting globally. We did have Steve Harvey the other day saying that the Africans should not come to the US. I don't know if let me see if I can share that video of Steve Harvey, but we have a problem. We really, really have a problem, and you need to address this issue of tribalism so that we can be able to move past that and also be able to unify as a people. If you're not working towards African unity,
umehakikisha SIM card yako imesajiliwa sawasawa kulingana na mwongozo wa Communications Authority. Kamilisha usajili wa...
No, that was some advert there. Sorry about that. Let me share this. If have a video is getting to wind up, and I'm just saying, if you not work past this tribalism nonsense, then we shall still be here. I thought that Steve Harvey wanted to set up and move to Africa, to Ghana. I'm not sure how that is going for him. But let me share these brief video here of him speaking to the Africans on the continent. But for the Africans who are in the States, as the Black people, we need to come together. And let me share this video, found to be rather interesting as we get into wind up here of Steve Harvey. I remember him going to Ghana. I hope they did not tell him in Ghana that he's not from their tribe, because this also makes it rather really difficult for people to unite around the world, as a Black people to unite around the world. Let me see if I get this video here. This video was that. Okay, here it is.
Welcome to Candid Africa, truthful and unapologetic.
I'm trying, like all the young Africans want to come to America. But I tell them, I said, look, man, you sure? You sure you want to come over here and be in this? This ain't what you think it is. See, when I'm in Ghana.
I don't know what Steve Harvey was doing in his far pullover. But I hope they didn't tell him that he's not from their tribe in Ghana, because that would be heartbreaking.
All the young Africans want to come to America. But I tell them, I said, look, man, you sure? You sure you want to come over here and be in this? This ain't what you think it is. See, when I'm in Ghana or South Africa and I get stopped by the police, guess what I get? I get a warning, I get a ticket, I'll give them $100 and I drive home. And I got $100. So chances are I ain't got a ticket yet.
Steve Harvey is sort of downplaying the facts, because when you were stopped by the cops, let me talk about Ghana. I do not know about South Africa, but I would know about Ghana and Nigeria, and also in Kenya. The problem is that we have corruption, but the thing is, I think Steve Harvey is saying that for him, he gets to go home still. He does not worry about his head getting blown up by these cops or anything else like that, which is what has happened, or being brutalized by the cops. It really will not happen that way. But we still have challenges such as corruption, which is rather really big. But anyhow, let me let him speak.
Be speeding my ass off. I've never, since I've been over there, saw on the news or nothing that somebody got pulled over by police and got shot. They don't shoot you in Africa. I said, man, y'all sure y'all won't come over here? Because you all don't understand that. And then when you're in South Africa, you hear about the difference between the blacks and the coloreds. I said, well, let me help you out with that. You come to America, your ass is black. You can call them coloreds over here if you want to. You can call them black. But you come to the United States, your ass is fitting to be black. So you sure you won't come over here? I think it's more beneficial for us to go home. See, this is how I describe it. America's my home. This is my home. My children are here. My grandchildren are here. A lot of my business is here. But Africa is my homeland. Me going to Africa is like going to a place called home that I've never been. When you land in Africa, you immediately feel good, don't you? Yeah, it's good vibes. Doug, it's crazy. Because you home. Doug, this is where you from. Your feet belong on this soil. We was ripped from there. So when I go to Africa, man, it's the place I get to walk around and I'm good all the time. Because the majority of the people look just like me. Everywhere I go. And that's a warm feeling, man. And if I could take what we've learned over here as African Americans and share that with them and empower them, that becomes great. But I think what people don't understand is how rich of a continent Africa really is.
Did you like or hate what you...
That was Steve Harvey, and I was just saying that I hope you not get the same experience that Ari Lennox did get, being told she's not from the tribe, but that is from Steve Harvey, and that is his sentiments on the matter. Only tribes that should exist among Africans is stupid tribe and the intelligent African tribe. That would really simplify things. I don't know about that, General Mosquito, but anyhow, absolutely, we are a global solar tribe. I agree. And also, Sister Janet, you're saying, Sister Michelle, General Mosquito, you all both brothers and sisters. No amount of tribes can take me away from you. 100%. I also agree with that. We should embrace one another as African people, not just go on with the tribalism. Kun Babel, you're talking about Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey. Anyhow, let me just leave Steve Harvey alone. But anyhow, we are winding up on today's broadcast of the Fit for Correspondence show. I was just saying that we need to go back and dig into African history, just get to understand the Nubians, the Nubian people of Sudan, and also get to understand the civilization of the Nubian civilization as well. And also just have, because our understanding of our history will draw us back together. That is my point. Our understanding of African history only will bring us back together if we are able to get past all these other things that we do have, tribalism, religion. If we go back, and because I would imagine that when we did have these conquest of Egypt by the Nubians and other different things that have happened, people were not on that tribalism or on that religion division. They were not divided among us along those lines. But that is my point that I was trying to make a little bit early. Let's just purpose to learn more about African history. When you get the opportunity right here with the Fit for Correspondence show, I will also be sharing a bit of African history, even as it's important to also focus on what is happening with current affairs. It's also much important to take into African history and also get to learn a little bit about the same. right here as a family. So thank you so much for being part of the Black Hot Network, for supporting us, Sister Michelle. Thank you so much. I know Sister Michelle would understand because your husband is from Sudan. So I bet you get to understand much more African history, Sudan history from Sudan than I might even understand. But maybe perhaps sometime we would love to hear from you of your understanding of your experience from Sudan. I bet you have been there. If not, then maybe you should make a trip and I'll go see the wonderful things when it's, the wonderful things in Sudan. Sometimes it gets crazy, but some other time it's really peaceful and it's a beautiful place. So you'd also just like to check in what time you're going to Sudan. Sometimes it's just wonderful. Some other times things go crazy, and it's like that. But maybe perhaps you even have a better understanding now that seeing that your husband is from Sudan and you also do have family there, you would maybe perhaps have a much more enlightened perspective on different issues when it comes to that. Brother Keith loves to still have you. I don't think he does. I don't think he does. I'm not sure. I don't think he does. But anyhow, we are winding up on this broadcast. We shall continue with other African matters, historical issues on the subsequent episodes of the Black Hot Fire Network 54 Correspondence Show. If you also like to get a hold of us, you can email blackhotfireafrica@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. If you do have questions or matters that you just like to delve into, please make sure that you are also reaching out and also letting me know what you would like to have us also delve into when it comes to the 54 Correspondence Show. Have an enjoyable rest of the day. Make sure you join us on the Africa Today Show later on. We shall be talking about what is happening with current affairs or current matters on that particular one. If you haven't visited the official network website, it's www.blackhotfirenetwork.com. Once you are on there, please create a profile. Until next time, much peace and love. I want to say, Kwaheri.